It's been a while. Oh, hey, Misty. It's been a while since I did a stream. But what I'm working on today, and what I've been working on for the past couple of weeks now, it's something that is really well suited to having like crowd participation. So I kind of hope that you guys in the chat will help me come up with some cool ideas. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There's already like a little sneak peek if you want to see some more detail, but that's going to involve a lot of reading. It's mostly there so I don't have to explain in case like people come in, like, let's say an hour from now. So I don't have to re-explain the premise of the stream a million times. But let's show you what I've got. All right. So this is what you'll see if you go to the little link I've posted down here. Basically, so for context, I'm gonna go through this for people who don't like reading one time. Basically, so Flarefall, if you're not familiar, it's the game I have announced about a year and a half ago. I'm a tabletop RPG designer and I've been working on this thing for a couple of years now. It's a sci-fi post-apocalyptic tabletop RPG where you play as survivors in a world where the modern civilization was destroyed by a massive solar flare. So like all long-range communication just collapsed overnight. It was a bit of a mess, but you're trying to rebuild some form of society, and that's kind of the premise of the game. And whenever I have a mechanic that I want to try and maybe include in this game, in Flarefall, what I do is that I make a small mini RPG, and I have already shared a few of those. So for example, on Patreon, in a free post, you can see Flarefall Light, which was my last mini tabletop RPG. It was like 4 pages long, plus a bunch of like printables, in case you want to give it a try. And the reason I did that last one was because currently Flarefall uses action points, not in the Pathfinder sense, but in the GURPS sense, which means players have anywhere from 10 to 15 action points per turn, and actions cost anywhere from 3 to like 6, 7, or 8 action points. And that was meant to let players experiment and do more than one thing on a turn. The problem with that is that, as anybody who has played GURPS can probably tell you, and what I probably should have foreseen already, was that new players especially, they kind of struggled with learning the game, and like turns would take upwards of 5 minutes sometimes, just because people were trying to figure out what they could do on their turn. Flarefall Light is a type of rock. That could be it, actually. But so what I tried last time I did this was this thing you saw here. Oh. Yeah, where you had a more 5e style action economy, where you had a combat action, which was typically like an attack, a skill action, which would be something creative. It could be like trying to grapple someone, etc. Ablaze, I haven't streamed in like a year, but this particular stream, or like what I'm working on right now, just really lends itself well to this. So that's basically what I had. But then Daggerheart came out, kind of blindsided me, as I said in my review of it. I thought I would not be the target audience for it, and as it turns out, very, very much was. Would it be offensive if I asked you to do a kickflip? So here's the thing, I do not exactly have feet. Like I do not have the equipment for this. You can do a regular flip, but that's about it. Alright, so Daggerheart came out a couple months ago, completely blindsided me, and so now instead of this, and like, this is an experiment, right? So maybe I will move towards this Daggerheart initiative, maybe I will move towards this, which I have already tested, and that already works. But I'm basically building a mini Daggerheart style game just so I can test this one change in isolation before I decide whether or not to include it in the main game. Let me just close my window real quick. There we go. So I wanted to give this a try. The problem is the game as it is right now includes a lot of durations. So for example, if you go to Flare for Light, there's a bunch of effects that end at the end of the creature's next turn. If creatures don't have turns, those effects don't really make a whole lot of sense anymore, right? There's also an entire stat presence which was meant to give allies extra action points. So if I go to like the list of actions, all of the presence actions, they're about giving bonus. Oops, I am over the thumbnail, the tooltip. All of the presence actions, they're about giving like bonus action points to your allies. So if you don't have action points and you don't have turns, those don't really make a whole lot of sense anymore. So I kind of had to reinvent the entire game. And I've already gotten started on this. It is very small, and I'm going to move over to the other side. So the first thing I did was to establish, like, when does the plot twister get to act? So in Daggerheart, there's a bunch of different ways the plot twister gets to act. I limited it to just 2 for now, and maybe we'll expand on this later. But right now, whenever you make an attack, the plot twister gets to like choose one of the enemies and make that enemy attack. And if the player fails a roll, the same thing happens. The plot twister gets the spotlight. The reason that distinction is important is that if you attack, the plot twister always gets to act. But if you do something creative, like improvising, making a roll during combat that is not an attack, there's a chance that you get to continue going. And to me, the goal of that is to encourage players to be creative, to do things other than attack every single time, to play with teamwork, like maybe you can make a roll to help an ally, grant them advantage on their next attack. That's going to be more worth it than just attacking yourself. The making a roll section, I think, hasn't changed, so it's the same thing as I have a video about on my channel. So 1d12 plus an attribute, and if you roll your luck or below, you can choose to push your luck, which can turn either your failure into a success or your failure into a mishap, which is worse than a success. Dealing damage, so that has changed from the current version of the game, but it has not changed from Flare Light. So the idea was that in the current version of the game, if I go to the weapons, they're currently balanced around 2 things: the damage and then the action point cost. So like a small weapon like the brass knuckles, they're going to be pretty cheap to attack with, but they're going to deal very little damage. If you get rid of action points and everybody gets a single attack per turn, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense anymore. So I had to come up with a way to deal damage where big dice and small damage dice, they would both be good just for different reasons. And the way it works right now is kind of like a dice pool where you roll all of your damage dice. So if you have 2d6, you roll 2d6. I You can only roll one at a time, but here's the demo. And let's say the target's armor is 3, you count the number of dice where you have a 3 or above, and that's how many hit points the target loses. Alright, see you around, Ezio. And with this system, basically, if you have a very large damage dice, like a d12, it's more likely to hit. If you have a small damage die, it's more likely to crit, because just as in Planefall right now, if you crit, the damage dice explodes, you get to roll it again, deal more damage, etc. So that's kind of what I got going on right now. Bonus and penalty, that's basically advantage and disadvantage. Works pretty much how you would expect. Focus is a new thing, because what I used to have was that you could focus on one thing in this system, but on every single one of your turns, you need to take the focus action, which is a move action, which means you get to take it up to 3 times in order to maintain your focus on ongoing effects. So like, let's say you spend one turn grappling an enemy. On the next turn, you need to either not move, or you need to spend maybe a skill action or a combat action to focus and maintain that effect. But if you don't have your, like, the concept of a next turn doesn't exist anymore, I kind of have to work around that. So I introduced the concept of a strong blow. And the idea is that if you take an amount, or if you lose an amount of hit points from a single hit equal to your grit or higher, that is called a strong blow. And that is what makes you lose your focus. And then we have the actions, which is still a bit of a work in progress. So the actions look very much like they do in the current game. You have a couple common actions, a couple universal actions that work the same for everybody. So attack, typically. But then you have the create and end effect action. So that's something I had already experimented a bit. The idea is that I want this game to be about creative problem solving, but people don't usually like taking the improvise action because it requires too much, like it relies too much on the GM ruling it exactly how they want, and people are sometimes too nervous to do that. So instead, I basically offer a list of effects that players can go, I want to create that effect. You get to tell me what I roll, you get to tell me the difficulty, but like, I know exactly what I'm gonna get out of it if it succeeds. So it's kind of like the improvise action, just with a bit more structure. Then you got help, so you make a roll and you gain a bonus, so typically advantage, to an ally, which plays in the whole Daggerheart initiative system. Do you really have to rebuild half your system just because Daggerfall does initiatives differently? Yes, very much. If you don't have turns anymore, a lot of things don't make sense anymore. And then there's improvise, so even though I have the create and end effect action, I still want to have improvise in there just to cover the everything else, right? The edge case of players want to do something weird. Question, why not skip on the improvise action and instead make all action just you get this effect, up to you how? A lot of the other actions you'll see in this list, they're things that are not very, like, they're not necessarily effects. So if I take, for example, brace, that could be an effect, right? Until you lose your focus, your armor is increased by 1. That's an ongoing thing. Yeah, that could be an effect. But if I look at interpose, when an ally is the target of a ranged or thrown attack and moving 2 meters or less would allow you to stand between the ally and the attacker, you can do so and become the target of the attack. So that's not really an effect, right? That's just something different. That's an action. There's no better way to put it. To be honest, players doing something weird is not really an edge case. That's just the default. Man, I envy you. I think if you say that, that means you have better players than me. So that's how it works for the universal actions. But then you've got a bunch of actions that have an attribute threshold, and I've got a whole video about that. But basically, the idea is that if you have a character with a very high grit, you're going to be very good at grappling, same as in D&D with strength. But if you have a character with a very low strength in D&D, you still have the grapple action on your list of actions. You still have to learn how that works, even though you're probably never going to use it. So the way I get to still have a grapple action is that it only shows up on your character sheet if you're going to be good at it. You can still do it if you're bad at it, but odds are you're probably not going to want to use it, so you don't need to learn how to use it. So it's kind of like an accessibility feature. It's here to make the game easier to learn. Sorry if you hear some background noise, by the way. I have some people at home right now. And each stat, so yeah, there's 5 stats: grit, finesse, which used to be called speed, but I'm renaming it; knowledge, which used to be called technique, but I'm also renaming it for one simple reason, which is that if you look at the crafting system, which we're going to get over in just a second, every item has a technology level, which is abbreviated to tech level. And the technique stat was also abbreviated to the tech stat. And that confused a heck of a lot of playtesters, let me tell you. So technique is renamed as knowledge, and finesse is the old speed. Presence, still the same thing, it's kind of charisma, and then luck is the wild card. Sorry again about the background noise. So that's kind of like the one-page rules for this game. Then page 2 I'm going to do much later. This is all of the player abilities. I have a couple ideas in there already, but that's going to be for later. Page 3 is what we're here to do today. It's the crafting system for this game. It is completely unrelated to the Daggerheart initiative in a way, which I just realized as I'm saying this. Oops. But basically, there's on Peter Tales from Elsewhere server, there's a challenge every month called Tabletop Community Spotlight, where they go like, hey, maybe come up with a crafting system this month for your own game. And I had a bunch of problems with my crafting system as it was, as it is currently in the game. So what it is currently is that it's functional. It works. It's fine. Every item in the game has a recipe, which means unlike in D&D, you actually, like, if you're a player and you want an item, you know how to get it. You just need to like look at the item description, and it's gonna tell you. Like if I look at a baseball bat, it tells me recipe 5 scrap, so 5 metal. And it tells me it's tech 1, which means just about anybody can make it. So you have ingredients which are abstracted, and you've got a technology level, and basically if it's tech 1, anybody can make it. Tech 2, you're gonna need a special perk. Tech 3, you're gonna need an extra special perk. And then 4 and 5, those are the equivalent of magic items in D&D. So those you don't get to craft, you only get to find them out in the wasteland through your adventures. So right now it works, right? Like it's okay, but it doesn't really play into the themes of the game. So for context, Playerfall is very much what we call a neo-trad game, which means a game in the same generation as stuff like D&D, Daggerheart, etc., where it's not so much about dungeon delving, it's not so much about combat, etc. Like, I still want the combat to be fun, but the point is to That might be a problem. Alright, we'll try to keep going, but if it continues being bad, just tell me and I'll probably have to do the stream another day. Okay, so I was saying this game is a neo-trad game like the Indie 5e at least. The problem with crafting is that most of the time it is not about the characters, right? Like if you have a crafting system in D&D, for example, it's usually going to be like, how many potions can you make? Can you make the best sword? But there's not really a concept of like, what does it mean for your character? So it's good, but I think it could be better. And that's basically my entire YouTube channel right there. It's a rabbit hole where I go, that's good, but it could be better. So how do, like the question I kind of asked myself was, how do you make a crafting system that is both functional, like I don't want to lose this I think works well, but how do you make it characterful? And there's a couple aspects to that. So first is going to be the character creation. So I'm going to introduce a new thing, I think, called gear points, where every job, so that's your non-combat skills, and every spec, so that's your combat skills, they're going to come with a list of item suggestions, and you're going to be able to pick from the jobs you have and from the specs you have. So for example, if you're a doctor, you're the one who gets to have stim packs, the healing item of the game, right? Like it's because you're the doctor that you get to have those. If you look at basically any sci-fi series like Star Trek, everybody's gonna have like the equivalent of a first aid kit, but if you have anything that's a bit worse, like any wound that's a bit more severe than just a little scrap, you're going to want to go to the crew's doctor because that is their purpose in the narrative. So that's one aspect of it. Second aspect of it is the actual crafting system. And I have some work. Let's just say I have some work on that. It's gonna be a bit wild. So it comes in, there's a few aspects to this. One is that every weapon is going to come with a random flaw and 2 random properties. If you're familiar with Warframe, think Riven mods. That's basically the inspiration for this. Except with Riven mods, you get something like, oh yeah, this weapon is gonna have plus 14% reload speed. It doesn't tell you exactly what that looks like. Here, I'm going to tell you exactly what that looks like. I'm going to tell you that, hey, your melee weapon, like your baseball bat, it has barbs. And this is what the barbs do. In this case, once per attack, you can reroll a 1 on the damage die. So, I think by doing that, it's going to make the players' weapons feel a lot more unique and make the players feel more attached to their weapons. That's kind of the goal of this. It's to make it so you're not just waving around a baseball bat, you're waving around a baseball bat that has a bike chain to extend its reach and some rusty nails at the top of it, and now it's your baseball bat. I hope that kind of makes sense. It is going to be the only random part of character creation. The goal of that is basically you get to choose who your character is, but you don't really get to choose what the world did to your character, if that makes sense. Like, this is post-apocalyptic, so you get to choose what your personality is. But those random tables, they're going to tell your character, like, what happened to them against their will. Then there are also level-based random tables. The reason for that is to kind of give players something to look forward to. So every random table is 1d10 plus your level, which goes from 1 to 10. So if you're level 1, you're going to be able to get these 11 entries, so from 2 to 11. And if you're level 10, you're gonna get these 10 entries, 11 to 20. And that plays into the game's progression system, where like the early mods are a bit weak. So for example, on your melee mod, if you roll a 1 and you're level 1, you're gonna get gilded. It just looks nice, right? You get a gilded baseball bat. It looks nice. If you roll a 10 and you're level 10, you get the most powerful possible mod, which in this case is you roll 2 extra damage die. It's like the equivalent of like a +3 weapon in D&D. I presume that you will add more flows. That's kind of why I thought this would be a good stream. It's that filling up a random table is very repetitive and tends to work better if you have a bunch of brains to poke. One thing I did consider was that there is one table for each weapon type, so melee, and then later there is ranged, and there is area of effect, so typically grenades, flamethrowers, etc. That way I can make the mods more specific to each weapon type. So if you look at the third melee mod, for example, it's concrete and rebar, so like your baseball bat is exceptionally heavy, and that gives you a bonus on attacks against objects. That's cool for a melee weapon, right? If you roll a 3 on a ranged mod, instead you get this, you get like a canister of instant foam. And so whenever you shoot a bullet, it creates that instant foam around the target, which creates difficult terrain. So that's pretty cool, but that wouldn't be as cool if it was on a melee weapon, because you would be caught in that difficult terrain yourself, right? So each table gets to have effects that work better for that weapon type in particular. But in order to not drive myself crazy, every other effect, so the 2, the 4, the 6, like every even numbered effect is going to be the same for every weapon type. So if you take a 20, for example, it's going to be +2 extra damage die on the melee weapons, but it's also going to be +2 extra damage die on the ranged weapon, and it's also going to be +2 extra damage die on the AoE weapon. That way I only have to come up with 10 unique effects per table, but instead I just need to like justify those generic effects differently for every weapon type. So for example, like the best possible melee mod, like the thing that makes you feel like, oh, I have finally conquered the wasteland, I like this place that used to be dangerous to me is now a boon to me, is that you have hard light on your melee weapon. You have like these nanoblades that were used to like shave people on your melee weapon. For a ranged weapon, it's gotta be an actual gun barrel from an actual gun. The idea being that, yeah, I mean, we know how to make those, but those are pretty rare, maybe. And every other ranged mod is going to look a bit silly compared to that, right? Like if you look at the art I have for the crafting section, it's a bit of a mess. The magazine is like a bubblegum dispenser. The auto fire mod is from a power drill, and there's a centrifuge and a CO2 canister. What do those even do? I don't know. But it's funny and it looks post-apocalyptic, so like I think weapons like these have a lot more personality, and so the most powerful ranged weapon mod is you get to have a regular ranged weapon. So that's kind of the idea. And then same for armor. I don't know if armor will have flaws. I didn't get a whole lot of ideas for armor flaws, so maybe like you guys can give me some ideas, I don't know. But that's kind of what I got so far. It's to give players something to bite on. Right? Something that makes them feel like, okay, yeah, this is my weapon. I'm going to turn it into a project. Like every couple levels, I'm going to improve it as well. And if you want to look at the table for yourself, it's this link right there. We have some people in there. No, yeah. Weapon flow, radioactive, deal damage to you every turn, or give you poison status. The problem with that is we don't really have turn. So damage over time is kind of weird in this, because of all of the Daggerheart nonsense that I'm also trying at the same time. But I also have a template for the flaws. The flaws work the same. They're like every even numbered flaw is going to be the same effect for all weapon types, and every odd numbered flaw is going to be unique to that weapon type, and that lets us like explore the design space of what does it mean for a melee weapon to kind of suck. Damage you whenever you take an action. That would be... that could be the burning effect. That's one that we have. We have the bleeding effect, and then we have dazed or restrained, where it's like if the target decides to attack, it suffers a mishap, and there's a table of mishap. You don't really want to roll on those. They tend to be pretty bad. Like if I roll a random mishap right now, or your armor is broken. -1 to your armor until the end of the scene. Music is getting loud. I'm gonna lower it a bit. There we go. I knew, Blaze, you would be great at coming up with random tables. Like your entire system is thousands and thousands of player options. I suck at this. You're great at this. Damage whenever you take an action equals. Guess I won't be acting then. Someone better come heal me. You can still heal yourself, right? Like if it's the dazed effect, for example, which is if the target attacks, it suffers a mishap. Healing yourself is not an attack, so you can still do that. But also, that's something that surprised me about Daggerheart, is that in the starter adventure, there is one monster that can stun people. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know, I'm generally not a huge fan of stun effects. But because there's no initiative, because you're not wasting your turn, because you don't have a turn anyway, like, I was surprised in play. I kind of liked stun effects in Daggerheart. Like, they didn't bother me as much as they do in D&D. That was kind of something I wanted to include in the Daggerheart review. I'll probably end up mentioning it in the next Daggerheart video, which is probably going to come up at the start of September, which is about like all of the changes I would make to the starter adventure. So if I were a player, my immediate thought would be, can I combine two weapons? So could I duct tape some shrapnel? So there is a whole crafting system as well in there. Like I've only talked about the random tables, but the way it works is that you have, actually I should probably whip out Excalibur for this. There we go. So you have crafting components, which can come in different tiers. Where is the font size? Okay, I'm gonna zoom to make it more visible. There we go. So you're gonna have 10 levels. There we go. You're gonna have 10 levels of crafting components, and the way it works is that if you spend a level 3 crafting component, for example, you're going to be rolling 1d10 plus 3 to the random table. If you roll a level 4, 1d10 plus 4, etc. So the better tier the item components are, the better the mods you're going to get on average. And you can take 2 crafting components of one tier and combine them into a crafting components of the next tier. So 2 tier 1 components, they end up being 1 tier 2 component, etc. So you can upgrade over time your components like this. Where weapons come into play is that there's 2 kinds of weapons in order to not make people crazy. Because imagine you defeat a dozen raiders out in the wasteland and they all carry 1 pistol. You don't want to roll 20 pistol properties and then 10 pistol flows. That's going to take you ages. So instead, when you get a weapon from someone else, like from a raider, from an enemy, what you get is a scuffed weapon. So you're not going to see, like, in the loot table of the raider, you're not going to see 1 pistol, you're going to see 1 scuffed pistol. And scuffed weapons, they don't have mods or flows, but you have this advantage on every attack with them. In order to repair them, you're going to need to spend 3 crafting components. 2 for the mods, 1 for the flow. And that's how you turn a scuffed weapon into a normal weapon that has mods and flows. But then, instead of doing that, what you could decide is that you take those 10 pistols and then you scrap them for parts. So that you, instead of improving those weapons, you take their parts to improve your weapons. And when you do that, you get 1 crafting component of your current level. So if you're level 3 and you have 10 scuffed pistols, you're gonna get 10 level 3 crafting components. And maybe you can combine those into like a couple level 5 components to improve your own weapon with level 5 components. So that's kind of how it works right now. Blaze is on fire. I'm gonna have to scroll back through all of Blaze's messages. Does your system have damage types? It doesn't right now. I've kind of, and by right now I mean the live version of the game, like the one on the website, it does in fact have damage types, but I have not added it to this like mini version of the game because I think I'm gonna end up getting rid of them. Like, I think damage types, they're something that are interesting if you actually do something with them. And right now, I am not doing much with them, unfortunately. Ooh, a weird armor flow might be unfamiliar insignia. Something you can't read, but means something to stranger. Oh, I love that so much. Let me write that down. So that's the armor section. That's something that the GM will need to know about in order to do something about that. That's my only restraint with this. I like the idea of a rev up, like for a think so. Do I have a rev up weapon in this? Because I know I do in the final version of the game, but I don't know if I put it in here. I do not, in fact. Because in the main game, I do in fact have like a minigun. And what I think the chainsaw works the same way, where like after you attack with this weapon, until you move or you attack a different target, all attacks with this weapon cost 3 action points instead of 5. So that's kind of like the rev up for a minigun. But I don't have the equivalent of that in the current version that I'm playtesting. That could be a weapon mod, that could be interesting. What would that look like? Catching up the stream on ×2 speed. I roll 1d1, 10,000 on the Blaze Reason table. Hang on, does Ishanikon World Shapers have huge random tables like this? I don't remember. If you're not familiar with Blaze, I encourage you to check this out. This is like a huge free tabletop RPG with like, I think at this point, millions of player options. But okay. No random tables, okay. Rev up. I think I still missed a few. Battery powered. You need 1 energy after each combat or the weapon can no longer be used. Oh, that is brutal, because yes, energy is still gonna be a crafting component. I think this makes the most sense for a ranged weapon. There we go. Battery powered. You need 1 energy. I'm gonna work on the wording and all of that stuff later. For now, I just want to get ideas on the paper. You get post-apocalyptic syphilis. Oh no. I think that's a different kind of game, Nick. A lot of the things give negative effect. You get tetanus if you crit fail. Somehow, I don't have that yet. And don't tell my players. If you're one of my players and you're watching this, close your ears for like 10 seconds. Okay, they're gone. I do have a plan for my home game, which is like a road trip. My players started in France and they're going all the way to Singapore. And the thing about that is when you travel, usually you have to update your vaccines because the types of illness that exist in one continent might not be the same. So they didn't do that. And I'm wondering what's the worst disease that could hit them once they get to like India or something, like something that's far enough away from France that illnesses would have evolved separately. But that's a story for another time. The scope flow could make you drowsy. So just to be clear, and I think I'm gonna need to explain this better in the actual document. You roll for mods and for flows separately. So like if you have a scope here, the flow that on the corresponding row of this table is not necessarily the flow for this scope. It's just a different item you put on your weapon just because you don't really have a good alternative. Oh, mother. God. This is also like a sci-fi setting, so I could give them something that is fatal right now but that is maybe healable in the fictional future. Battery powered. Armor could have stiff actuators, penalizing speed. I love that. I struggled a bit with movement in Daggerheart because, like, the entire idea is that you run combat the same way as exploration encounters, and in exploration encounters, like, players don't necessarily need to tell you whenever they move. Like, if you've played on a VTT, you'll usually see tokens just flying around the map with exactly no sense or reason. So it's kind of weird to have limits on movement during combat in a system that is supposed to treat combat as exploration. Sci-fi mosquitoes. Oh no. You do realize, Misty, that now I'm going to need to commission some art of, like, mutant mosquitoes, and it's gonna be your fault. I think the connection problems are back. Oh no. Is my roommate downloading Steam games because it's the summer? So stiff actuators. It's better again. Okay, yeah, it's just jumpy today is what I'm getting. Could be a covetous flaw where everybody wants it. Maybe some devices come with a tracking device. Oh, I'm gonna... Actually, that is the ranged weapon table, so this should go here. Maybe it's expensive, or there's a GPS tracker in it. Trying to, like, project myself into what gameplay this will create. I think if I'm a player and I see this, the first thing I'm gonna do is re-roll that flow until I get something else. That's kind of like my one worry with this. I am a very paranoid player though, like, people who've run games for me can tell you. The item I am most pressed and most anxious about getting is usually something that protects me from divination. And just to be clear, like, because this is a playtest document, I'm probably going to be playtesting it at level 1, which means my goal is not necessarily to fill the entire table, but just to fill it until line 11. Because if I fill it until line 11, that means I can actually playtest this thing, and then decide whether or not to fill the other half of the table. I think that's the most sensible way I can approach this right now. Because, like, whenever I do one of these experiments, I'm not sure whether or not any of this will stick. I have done experiments where none of it sticked. I think I can show you, it should be on my GM binder. What was it called? I don't remember what I called it. I have too many of those. Oh, Stactical, that's the one. So that's another one of these experiments I did. Oh god, it's in French. I forgot it was in French. Oops. But this was an experiment where I played around with zone-based movement. So if you're familiar with, like, the Modifius games, 2D20, Fallout, etc., you might be familiar with this. And I also experimented a bit with reaction-based combat. So again, I was not happy with the action economy for a long time. Let's see if I can finally find something I'm happy with. Flow threadbare for armor. It needs reinforcing or it will shred on a strong enough hit. Ooh, that's great. I forgot I had introduced a new mechanic, and then I could play around with this mechanic. Oh no. Didn't you do one in English? I think I might have translated it later. Oh no. That doesn't look like there's a second version of this. Stack 20? That might be Stack 20, the English version. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so same thing, like, it's just a 2-page RPG. I think I have posted it on my Discord server a couple times. And this one is fantasy just because I wanted to test those mechanics in the most isolated environment possible. Red Bear. Yo, like, I am so happy to have native English speakers right now because I would have never thought of using the word threadbare in my entire life. I'll be real. On a strong hit, armor is damaged. -1 armor until your next rest. A reason to procrastinate. Welcome, James. Check out James. He's got a really cool YouTube channel. He makes videos about math every single day, all the time. That's what he does. One-page RPG jam when you're making it. It is the one-page RPG jam nowadays, isn't it? Yeah, so this thing is already 10 pages long because I added a bunch of random tables for the GM as well. With like adventure premises and all of that good stuff. So yeah, 1 page is a bit too short for me right now. Oh god. Red Bear. What is that's also something I like about this method, is that just the place in the table can already give you like a prompt to guide your imagination. So like, what is the worst possible flaw for an armor? Obvious weak spot. Enemy dice explode when rolling 1 lower. Oh, that is brutal because most weak enemies are going to be rolling d4s. So if you do that, that means they explode 50% of the time. I think it could create situations where you take infinite damage. Especially if they have like advantage. If I'm an enemy right now and I roll a d4, oh no, it exploded. Let's re-roll it. Oh no, it exploded. Let's re-roll it. Okay, this one didn't explode. Next, the armor. Rafa, this is not that kind of game. I'm a robot. I don't do that. Rusty armor. Water makes it disintegrate. Oh, I hate that as a player. I love that as a GM. Let's put it in the table. One flaw that I liked toying with, I don't know if it's still in the table, is like, it's easily broken, not in that you get like -1 to your armor, but in that you might just lose one of your mods if something happens. Like the mods are positive, so the flaw can be if something happens, that one mod is broken until you repair it later. There's also another extremely selfish reason why I'm hesitant to play around with like the range for each die that your explosions happen at. It's that I am building a website for this, and trying to... Oops, I cannot log in while streaming. Let me just whoop. Like coding the animation for that so that it works. That sounds very difficult. Like right now I can just roll a shotgun and it's gonna have like a cool animation. Like this is with advantage. Oh god. Let me just have some actual AP so I can do this. Okay. Come on, show me some explosions. There we go, some explosions. Oh no, I was hiding them. Oh no. There we go. Show me some explosions, I said. There we go, some explosions. So I have a whole system of animations to show you what your die roll looks like. It would be very difficult for me to implement something that messes with the explosion system. Repair the rust if they find the right stuff to do so. Oh, so one of the crafting ingredients is actually chemicals. So that could be what you use to repair it. Cumbersome. It takes 30 minutes to take the armor off it on. So I have seen, like in D&D, it already takes 10 minutes to put on an armor or take it off. And in my experience, at least, with like a couple dozen D&D groups, everybody would just wear their armor while sleeping. Like, unless you were like a paladin with heavy metal armor, most people would just wear that while sleeping just because it was annoying to keep track of. So my goal is not necessarily to... that is a lot of mechanics, right? It's going to be 4 tables each with 40 entries. That's kind of crazy if you think about it. I don't want people to look at that and go, oh, that is going to be so hard to keep track of. So I need all of the effects to still be very easy to resolve. Have you seen how the Cosmere RPG does initiative? I think it's something about you can choose to take a slow turn or a fast turn. That's going to determine how many actions you get. I have not played the Cosmere RPG yet, but I really want to because I think it has a bunch of cool ideas. The thing is, like, whatever I think a game has some cool ideas, there's a 50-50 chance that I will end up really liking it or really hating it in play. That's kind of how game design tends to go. So I really want to test it just to see. Oh yeah, I think turn down the music. There we go. You clean out your armor only to discover that it is a fursuit. Oh no. Fursuit. I don't know what it does, but it's a flaw. That's probably like the way I have structured the table is that the worst possible mod does nothing and the best possible flaw does nothing. So it could almost be that your fursuit is the best possible flaw. Oh, James will run Cost Me RPG for me. Yeah. We have achieved something productive in this stream at least. I can tell you this much. Old Legends armor. It's a great set, but you now have to deal with the reputation that this armor carries. The enemy's targeted. I think, yeah, we kind of have something like that with the Covetous one. I don't know if I want to play with it. Like, if this is a flaw, I think it needs to be pretty low in the table. Because, like, the armor has a reputation. So, like, it's a flaw, but it kind of makes you feel cool. And the goal of, like, lower entries down the table is to make players feel like they have started to master the wasteland, if that makes sense. I think for this, like, it's really good. Back to work. See you around, Twin Steel. Explosive armor. Where is the explosive armor idea? Restraints with an explosive collar. Oh, I had missed that one. Sorry, Eric. The armor was meant to protect the wearer's captor from the wearer. Oh no. Oh, that is brutal. We want to make it even worse because, like, as a player, if you see this, first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna want to re-roll that flaw, right? We could make it so you can't take off the armor or re-roll that flaw. Or rather, it's not that you can't take off the armor, it's that if you do, it's gonna blow up. Fewer pockets. I don't really have an encumbrance mechanic right now. If I did, that would definitely need to be on the table somehow. I think I can remove that for you because, at least with your help, there is now a good amount of interesting flaws. I can replace it with encumbrance flaws. Cursed gives the plot twister the possibility to create a fumble once per day or once per session. If this was a fantasy setting, that would definitely work, but this is more of a sci-fi setting, so I don't know if this would be a good fit here. bound to other heart rate. It's connected to a device that senses the vitals of another human. If they go down, so do you. I'm gonna write that one down, but one thing I haven't mentioned yet in this stream is that this is the list of armor, flaws, and mods that players can roll on, right? So this is player facing. What I'm gonna do if this ends up being like the standard for this game, like if this ends up making the cut, what I'm gonna do is that there's also going to be secret mods and secret flaws that only appear in the GM section of the book. And so one thing you could loot is a unique mod that instead of rolling, you can just slot it into your armor. So for those more story focused effects, I think those would be great as GM facing flaws. I think I might write this for Covetous, just so I don't forget. Including loot tables. Like, imagine if you defeat like an infamous raider captain, like a raider overlord, and you use their armor from now on. Like, everybody's gonna assume that you are that raider overlord from now on. But it needs to be a story beat rather than just a random table entry, I think. Malodorous, just nasty musty stuff. Announces your player. Oh no. Do I add except against robots? Because robots are not known for their sense of smell, but that might be a bit too granular of an effect at that point. Uncomfortable. Disadvantage on dex saves. Because it gives you wedgies. Oh no. So I don't really have dex saves right now. Again, because I'm trying to keep this as rules light as possible. So instead, I guess the equivalent would be finesse checks, or maybe finesse contested rolls. I guess the effect could be something like whenever someone contests your finesse, you have a penalty. Anchor. This armor is so heavy you can't swim. That could be something to add to that table. Oh, another thing is the 11th row of those tables, that's going to be the one row out of that entire table that is going to be on the table regardless of what bonus you roll with. Like, if you roll with a bonus of +1, 1d10 plus 1, that's going to be 11. If you roll with a bonus of +10, 1d10, the minimum plus 10, that's going to still be 11. So like every other entry, it's going to fade in or out of the table eventually. But 11 is going to be there all the time. So what I did for the other tables is I tried to make it like the most iconic effect, like the effect that I think players are going to want no matter what their level is, if that makes sense. So for example, for melee weapons, in this game there are cold shots, and with melee weapons you use like a card break disc as a counterweight for your weapon, and that lets you do cold shots with grit instead. So that's something that I think players are going to want at any level. So that's another way I kind of like restrict my creativity to like try to push it in the right direction. What's something that players might want at any level on an armor? No pockets, reduces your inventory space. Yeah, I really need to come up with some way to do encumbrance in this game. Encumbrance is one of those things, like initiative, oddly enough, which I think it's I kind of think of it as a necessary evil, where you kind of want to have rules for that, otherwise your players are going to be carrying 1,000 different weapons. But at the same time, I don't really have anything very interesting to do with it. Secret pockets is unit. Secret pockets. So you can smuggle some things. That is very good. Yeah. I know, like in Starfinder, I use the secret compartment in my robot drone friend, and I use that a lot. So I absolutely get the appeal. More spikes. I do have spikes in there. I don't remember what number it is associated with, but I absolutely do have spikes. Yeah, protruding nails. Whenever an enemy grapples you, they take 2d6 damage. Oh, hey, Davi. Honestly, OSR encumbrance is kind of how I expect new systems to track encumbrance. Do you have like a game that does it off the top of your head? Because I am not familiar with a lot of OSR games. Ejector pack. You can avoid 1 instance of damage and move a short distance, but it breaks the armor. Ooh. That is kind of sick. I think it would be like, it would feel way more post-apocalyptic if I justified it as like you have what's it called, like those things you use to put out fires, and that's your jetpack. What's it called in English? Fire extinguishers. There we go. Dragonbane does like you have space for 10 things, and big things count as multiple things, and small things count as one thing if you have 4 of them. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. I usually call that like Minecraft encumbrance, where you have like different items tell you how many of them you can stack. You can avoid 1 attack once, but then it's empty. Spikes that poke you when you get grappled. So spikes look cool, but don't function offensively at all. Oh no. Resident Evil inventory. You get a pack of X size, figure out how to puzzle piece all together to fit. I think with the whole VTT I have, this is kind of easy to do. Like I already have a system for vehicles that kind of works like this, where you can slot items into place. How do I delete it again? I forgot. There we go. So I already have a system I could use that for, but like I don't want the website to be a replacement for pen and paper. I want the game to still be playable with pen and paper, and I'm kind of afraid with systems like this where you can just like have a whole grid of items. I don't know how easy this would be to manage for pen and paper people. Roguelike inventory system, yeah. That's definitely been on my mind as well. Just because in this game there are a lot of weapons that you need to reload after a couple attacks. And so one thing I'm afraid of doing, which thankfully my players are not doing right now, is they could just carry 10 shotguns, and whenever one of them needs to be reloaded, they just chuck it on the ground and pull out the next one. And that would kind of break the game's balance. Not so much if every single weapon has random properties that they have to actually work towards, but like I still ideally would want the players to only carry a couple weapons and only use a couple weapons. So I definitely have to start thinking about encumbrance at some point. Let me write it down somewhere so I don't forget. I'm sorry, Alexei. You're gonna have to be a bit smaller. Encumbrance system that hopefully does not suck. Camouflage armor. I already have a bunch of those. I have... Where's the armor? I have a trash bag ghillie, which gives you advantage on hiding in urban terrain. And I think I might have, yeah, a Bionid leaf ghillie, which gives you bonus to hide in natural terrain. So I have 2 ghillie suits, which are very sci-fi, both of them. I'm turning into one of those people who go, but in Dragonbane. One thing I have been considering is to have like that very computer RPG system where you have like hand slots and helmet slots and leg slots and all of that stuff, where if I try to find, for example, Path of Exile inventory image. Yeah, there we go. Oh god, why is it? Why is the file type file? What did I just download? Oh no. Okay, there it is. So that's not the inventory I was looking at. So in Path of Exile, you have just these, and that's your entire inventory. I mean, you still have your storage over here, but like the stuff you can use during combat is only this. So even if you have a million different weapons in your storage, you can still just use this one and your shield, and then you have an alternate one just in case you need it. If it's any consolation, I'm that person with Daggerheart. Absolutely, I'm the same as you, Misty. This entire stream is me going, so you know the game I've been making for the past 2 years. What if I just removed the initiative because I really liked when Daggerheart did that. All right. I think if we have one more armor floor, I can actually playtest this thing. Did I miss one in the comments earlier? That could be a good way to do encumbrance, actually, yeah. And that comment about me liking item cards is going to be very funny in like 2 weeks. But I'm not going to say any more about that. Finds the poke you. Your armor has some very offensive text or images that make people dislike you. Poor taste. Imagery. And I'll let the player describe it exactly what that means. That's kind of dangerous. They might describe some stuff that is not very good. I was working on my own RPG for years in my spare time, then Daggerheart came along and showed me all the flaws in my system. I mean, that happens every couple months, right? When I'm done with the Daggerheart honeymoon phase, I'm sure I'll find something else to be completely obsessed about for like 2 months. War armor. This armor triggers your PTSD. Oh no. It's hard for you to get a good night's sleep. Oh no. I kind of feel bad for the players who get this. Haunted armor. That would work well if this was a fantasy game. I guess one of the higher tier flaws could be this armor has an AI in it that keeps insulting you. Oh god, that table is already more than a page. I'll work on the wording later to keep it down a bit. Wait, let's make it sci-fi. What is... Misty, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun in like 10 seconds. Criminal armor. This armor belongs to a wanted criminal or looks like it. By the way, there should be my chat around here somewhere on the stream and I'm not seeing it right now. And I also forgot to remove the D4. Where's the chat? Oh well. I'll figure it out before I do a next stream in like 15 years. Cursed is a AI. I kind of like the idea of a bitter, sarcastic AI that I have to put up with. Yup. I'm also not seeing the chat on stream. Yeah, I think the component is just broken because I haven't streamed in a long time and the link might be broken. Oh, no. Normally, if it works well, I should have a second component in there where if I joined this Discord server, yeah, there we go, my name appears. So like if I end up having guests on my stream, I can have them on here. And if I actually push to talk, it should show up as well, like whenever I talk. Oh, there we go. That's some good technology right there. But for some reason the other one is broken. Like Jarvis for Iron Man, but like it's tragic. Oh no. Something like the grey mask from Oblivion. When you wear it, they can't comprehend who you are. That's going to be very, very funny in like 2 weeks as well. I'm not gonna say anymore. I might have a video about magic items coming up, and I might just be a huge Oblivion nerd. Just maybe. That might be a thing that is happening. Add banner. Did I miss something? Because yes, I do want an add banner on an armor somewhere. Kind of like the idea of a... What would an add banner do? It could start making noise, like a, what's it called? Blight add banner. Every couple minutes it makes a loud noise. Maybe that like you could be heard from a distance away. That's a very annoying malfunction. And then one, you cannot take the action. That is brutal. That is taking agency away from the players. I don't know if I like that, even though we have the Daggerheart style initiative. This armor is sponsored by Monster Energy. I have some in-universe brand in this thing. This armor is sponsored by Bextech, of course. And yes, I in fact have some art of a Bextech banner in there somewhere. I think it's the technology art. Yeah, there we go. Bextech Hardlight Nanoblades. Subatomic blades for the post-atomic man. Use the code Trikiros for like 30 days free. And fun fact about this illustration, the guy who is now like a scavenger in the post-apocalyptic world is the 20 years later, more aged version of the model of that ad. I asked the artist to make sure of that. Like, it's the same guy, just 20 years later. Imagine taking a hit and the armor has an ad pop up saying your free trial has ended. Oh no. This is now a cyberpunk setting. Your hammer has a scope. It could be a fun flow. Like a high tier flow though. Idle period armor is too good not to use. Been trying to reach you about your hovercraft extended warranty. Oh no! an AI that 50% of the time gives very good advice and 50% terrible advice. I think this goes into the AI. It could do something like you have you can use this AI to make knowledge checks, but you have to push your luck on those. Never played World of Warcraft. If so, which zone was your favorite looks-wise? I have played World of Warcraft for all of 2 weeks, and then all of my friends who I was playing it with got bored, and I got bored last, but I still got bored. I'm sorry. But I think in terms of zones, I probably only managed to go through like 2 or 3 of them. There was like a bay, like a village on the bay that was like pirate coded, but also gnome coded. I don't remember the name, but I'm sure the World of Warcraft people in the chat will be able to help me with this. That happened with a lot of popular games, where my home group in D&D would be like, "Hey, let's play League of Legends. That's the new cool game because we're in 2010, and that's when it was the new cool game." And then they played it for like 2 weeks, and then they gave up. Were you playing a dwarf? No, I was playing like a troll shaman or something for all of those 2 weeks. But it was like a village built into a cliff near the sea with a bunch of bridges everywhere, and that's why I kind of liked it. Is like it's a very unique setup for a town, and I ended up using this in D&D a bunch of times. I simplified my initiative similar to Daggerheart but different. In my system it is always back and forth. Good guys go, bad guys go. Simple to track, but no one is set up to go at a specific time. Yeah, I considered doing this, but the reason I ended up not doing this is I wanted to, like, one of the goals of this game, I have the design goals listed for this game on the rules page. One of the goals of this game is teamwork, and I figured by doing the same thing as Daggerheart, where if you make an attack, you always trigger a GM roll, but if you make a roll that helps your allies, typically, there is a chance that the GM doesn't get a roll. So that is going to promote teamwork so much, because like players, they have a bunch of ways to be more successful. They can push their luck, they can they're usually going to be making rolls with at least a +4 or a +3. So like they're pretty likely to get an extra turn whenever they make a roll like this. Sounds like Booty Bait. That might be why I forgot the name, is that it's a very silly name. Built into a bay, into a C shape. Yeah, it's a... like you can see one wing of the town from the other wing. Hello, bucket of puppies. We're filling some random tables today. Okay, so we have the first 11 rows for armors. They're all filled up. I'll clean up the wording later, like the link at the bottom of the screen is gonna still work after the stream ends. So that's gonna, if you want to, like the updated version, whenever that comes out, that's where you're gonna be able to find it. If I want to be able to playtest this thing, I'm going to need to fill up to row 11 for the other weapon types. Let me pull up, if I can find it. I have, there we go. So this is the document I'm using to prepare for this monstrous task, where I have the templates, so like the generic effects on every other effect. So as I was saying, just in case people joined since the start of the stream, on those random tables, the odd numbered effects are unique to each weapon type, but the even numbered effects are the same for every weapon type, and that kind of helps me keep my sanity. So I have to come up with less effects, and also not worry too much about the power curve, because it's going to be baked in to those common effects that every scroll down for. Yeah, Nick helped me with this. I don't know if Nick is still in the chat right now. So for the flows, I have this, and I'll copy paste it on the document itself, just so we have it. Paste unlinked. Does that work? Yeah, there we go. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, my neighbor just started drilling the walls. That's not going to make for a very good viewing experience if that continues. Did I get it all wrong? Yes, I did. This. Do not hear the drill. Okay, good. Okay, so that, for context, I'm going to make my little modern dick guy a bit smaller. So those effects are going to be the effects of all the odd numbered flows for every weapon type. There's one of them that I had something and then I broke it. What it used to do was it reduced the number of damage dice by 1. But the problem with that is that I have some weapons that only deal a single damage die. So that kind of stopped working all of a sudden. I'm not too sure what to do for the number 6. But as you can see, like there's a progression here where the top flows, like the ones with the lowest numbers, they are very, very bad and you don't want to have them. But as you get lower on the table and as your bonus gets bigger, they start to get a bit less severe or a bit more situational, and suddenly you're a bit more okay with actually having those flows. So if I go to AoE weapons, The effect is on miss, so if you roll like 2d4 and none of them hit the target's armor, the weapon becomes scuffed. You need to spend crafting components to repair it. That is brutal. The question is, for those shared effects, how do you justify it for something like a flamethrower or a pack of frag grenades? Oh, this is not marked down. Then for number 4 we have those. Number 6, the effect is undetermined right now. Number 8, you subtract 1 from the rolls of every single one of the damage die. So instead of being a 1d4, 1d4 minus 1. My brain juices are starting to run out. I generated too many ideas. Yeah, that's been my experience with this entire project. Like when I decided to make, I think it's 160 total random entries. I don't know why I decided to do that. That was a terrible idea. What triggers a roll on the table? So there's 2 ways to roll on the table. One is during character creation. You have your weapon that you got as part of character creation. You're gonna need to roll some random properties for it. And the second one is whenever you get a weapon from a defeated enemy, that weapon is scuffed, but you can choose to repair it, and that's when you roll on the random properties table. That way you don't have to roll for every single weapon that you loot, just for the ones that you actually plan on using. But that costs you some crafting components. Like every crafting component, it comes with a level. So if you repair a weapon with like 2 level 2 components and 1 level 3 component, you're gonna be rolling a mod with 1d10 plus 2, a second mod with 1d10 plus 2, and then a floor with 1d10 plus 3 on that third one. That's kind of how it works. You have done that to yourself. Yep. But if I manage to finish this, I think it will be kind of fun. And I'm kind of... I really want to get this done so I can actually playtest it and see how it looks in play. Alright, some flaws for... Smoky explosions. After attacking, an AoE area becomes covered in smoke that hinders visibility for 1 turn. I already have something like that, I believe. Where is it? Fog machine fluid. You create an obscured hazard in the area. Oh yeah, I should open the window as well, now that my roommate is gone. Get some fresh air in my mechanical lungs. Sidebiter. The weapon has dangerous moving parts close to the wielder. Chance of lasting penalty to attacks on a miss. That feels like an actual gun term, like an actual thing that I would know about if I knew anything about anything. Apparently, according to Google, it's not. You just came up with that on the spot. What the heck? That's like a superpower. Rolling grenade. Chance of hitting an area right next to the original aimed area. That is kind of cool, actually. So rolling grenade, that works for grenades, but in AoE weapons I also have things like the flamethrower, for example. And that's just one example, but I think there's going to be more in the final game. And that kind of that's kind of a difficulty with the AoE table, is that I have to justify how things work for weapons that look very, very different and work in very, very different ways. Wait a minute, this wasn't a weapon to begin with. In fixing this item, you have restored it to its original function, a vacuum cleaner. Oh no. That is absolutely brutal. Like, imagine if someone gets that at level 1. Unreliable delay. Chance to explode a few turns after you fired it. I believe that is a mod that I made it on purpose. Where is it? I think it's like kitchen egg timer. Yeah, there we go. You can choose to delay the damage by up to 1 hour. So that's more intended to let the players set up traps. Does that make sense? So let's call this one banged up nozzle or something. And I think grenades might have nozzles. I don't know how things work. I'm a modron on the internet. My job is to have opinions, not know things. Banged up nozzles. The area is shifted 1 meter in a random direction. Roll 1d10 and use fighting game notation to determine the direction. Multi ammunition, chance to shoot confetti instead of explosion fire. I already have one of those. It's the least good mod. It's the mod that does nothing. It just looks pretty, right? Because whenever it explodes, there's confetti everywhere. I think I might have glitter bombs as well. Glitter... Although that was just another name I was considering for the confetti bomb. But that could have like a separate effect. When it explodes, it's just a bunch of glitter. Premature explosion. Chance to cause the explosion where you stand. It could be... Ooh. I like the effect, like the area has to be centered on you and include you. Oh, hey gang. I'm doing good, thank you. We're doing some random tables, so if you have some ideas for weird post-apocalyptic stuff that you could add to your weapons, like... Basically, we're trying to conjure this vibe right here, where you have a weapon where the magazine is made up of a bubblegum dispenser and the auto fire is powered by a power drill and all of that nonsense. We're trying to conjure that vibe in a bunch of random tables that players will have to roll on whenever they create their characters and have to decide on which weapon they're using. So the effect for that one would be the area has to be centered on you. I think this needs to be pretty high on the table. Like this needs to be up here. Oops. The question is, how do I justify it in terms of like, what is the item that you add to your weapon that ends up making it explode around yourself? The weapon is operated totally unconventionally. I really like the idea of mods for used weapons. How about incompatible or novel ammo? Like the weapon is so homebrewed, there's nothing else compatible. Yeah, I have a couple of those. Like, I think one of them is you shoot pencils instead of actual ammo. One of them is an actual BB gun. I had to look up, by the way, whether or not BB gun was a trademark, just in case. Turns out it's not. So good, I get to use it. An emergency fist on a spring could be fun to knock people away who get too close. I don't know how to introduce that, because like the idea is that those are not weapons themselves. They're things you add to your weapon. So like, for example, you have a baseball bat and you're gonna add barbs to it, or you're gonna add like a bike chain or scalpel blades, or all of that nasty little nonsense that makes your weapon feel very post-apocalyptic. It makes it feel more unique, like it's your weapon. It's not just a baseball bat anymore, it's your baseball bat. Feature literal glass cannon, load with sufficiently sandy dirt, fire molten glass. What effect did that have? Because I already have some incendiary ammo, but I wasn't super happy with the fact that this doesn't feel post-apocalyptic, right? It's not made with stuff you could find in like a hardware store. At least not the hardware stores where I live. It's a spring fist. Your weapon doesn't shoot bullet, it shoots a spring fist. It becomes like a ranged melee attack. What? Hang on. Hang on, you're onto something with this. Inconsistent grenade. Oh, where the area is random. Overloaded soda balls. Okay, yeah. Roll 1d4. 1 or 2. The area is halved. 3 or 4. The area is doubled. Whenever you attack. I guess that could be the number 6 entry, which I was kind of struggling with it. Like, what is the number 6 effect? Or the number 6 flaw? It could be like random 50-50 chance, and the moment I use my numpad, my avatar starts doing weird stuff. 50-50 chance that it does something cool or terrible. I used to have a broken paintball gun that would spray my trigger finger with freezing CO2 every time I shot it. Oh no. Your gun doesn't trigger it. Okay, I have it ready. So if this is the effect for AoE weapons, then the effect is going to look a bit similar for ranged weapons. That's the neat part. So roll 1d4 whenever you attack. 1 or 2. Don't want to say like the range is half, because that is gonna be a different effect. Hello, welcome to the stream. Blunderbuss uses scrap as ammo. That could be a thing. Spend 5 scrap to reload. Something like that. Bouncing bullet. On roll a d6. On a 1 it also hits an ally. On a 6 it also hits a different enemy. Ooh, I love that. Also the font size is kind of inconsistent. Let's just make it 7 everywhere. Oh god, oh god. Can I just select this one table, please? Thank you. So it's number 6. So pencil launcher ammo. I think I'm gonna need to reuse that title somewhere else. And instead it would be bouncy rubber ammo. So roll 1d4 whenever you attack. 1 or 2. The attack also hits an ally. 3 or 4. The attack hits 1 extra enemy within range. I like that because like it has the potential to create some really cool clutch moments. Oh, the song is kind of loud. Let me just lower it a bit. First time I catch you live. That's cool. What are you doing? So, there's a bit more detail in there if you're curious, but just to keep it short, whenever I want to try a new mechanic for my game that I'm making called Purple, I make like a small 1, 2, 3 pages RPG. In today's case, it is 12 pages because I have no restraint. But normally it's like 2 pages. Like this one was just 2 pages. And in this experiment, what I'm doing to try to figure out whether or not I want to include it in the main game is I'm working on a crafting system where whenever you get a weapon, like let's say a kitchen knife, you roll 2 mods, like let's say a bike chain that increases your reach by 2 meters. So you add a bike chain to your kitchen knife, and then scalpel blades, so your kitchen knives has even more blades on it. But you also roll 1 flow, so maybe loose screws, and on crit you also take the damage. And the goal of that is to make your weapons feel more unique and like they have more of a post-apocalyptic flavor to them. Cheap ammo. This weapon can only explode once per attack. That is a great flow that I should absolutely have on there. Do I have it on there? Subtract 1. Where's the flows template? Reroll your first crit. I have something similar. I don't have you can only crit once, but I have you have to reroll your first crit. Mathematically, what would be the most the better flow between this? I guess I have to ask any dice. Oh god. Am I about to improvise some any dice code on stream? That's gonna be yeah, no, let's focus on the random tables for now. I'll just write down the idea somewhere. There we go. I'm too tired to do math right now. Yeah, like in Europe, it's almost 8 p.m. Like in 20 minutes, I'm probably gonna end up the stream. Catching emails up after Gen Con. Oh, you're one of those cool people who actually got to go. Oh no. One day I'll be a cool people too. Nanitic rot. High-tech materials confused by the flares. Gradually breaks, rerolls. Features on repair. I don't know if I want to justify it with nanites, but I definitely want an effect in there that is like whenever you do X or whenever something happens, choose one of your mods and it's just broken until you repair it. Like, I think that's a cool idea. I only need 2 more flows for this. Let's put this at 11, because that's an effect I think I would want to have the potential to happen like throughout the entire campaign. And 11 is like the magic number which you can have regardless of your level, if your level goes from 1 to 10. What's flow number 4? Flow number 4 is the potential for self-damage. So it can't fit here, but maybe it can fit down below? What's flow number 10? Reroll your first crit. Oh. Oh, I guess this table is almost done then. Do heavy knockback. After every trot you take a bit of damage. Ah. Heavy recoil. I think recoil sounds more ranged weapony. If you hit hard enough, it will work. Weapon is basically a bludgeoning weapon until it causes enough damage. Then you get X firing power. I don't really understand that one. Synthesizes ammunition from blood. This would be like a unique effect. Something you would find like as part of the story rather than in some random loot. Missile and barrel idea, not right. Where is it? Look it up at ease. Barrel misaligned bullets have a chance to fracture inside the barrel, turning it into a short-range buckshot. Ooh. Kind of like this, especially as a higher level flaw, where you still get to deal damage. Maybe even you're gonna deal damage to more enemies, but in order to use that buckshot effectively, you're gonna need to be closer to the enemies, which is dangerous if you're a squishy ranged character. Roll 1d4 before each attack. 1, 2. The gun misfires into a short range buckshot. AOE 3 meters thrown in front of you. 3, 4. The gun fires normally with the weapon. There we go. Oh, see you, Eric. Is this sci-fi RPG design? Yeah. So the premise of the game is that it, in the year 2103, I believe, where you, like 20 years ago in 2080 something, there's a massive solar flare. Oh god, my neighbor just started drilling. There was a massive solar flare which fried most technology on Earth, causing like the collapse of the supply chain, government response, like emergency services, all of that stuff. So it's a post-apocalyptic setting now, but it used to be a sci-fi setting with cold fusion reactors everywhere. There's hard light. There's super AI, not the unfunny real world kind that steals people's jobs, but the funny fiction one that has robots that you can talk to and they become NPCs and sometimes they insult you and stuff. Hey Glenn! Almost want a random tables of effects that may happen in that. Weird gunpowder. Oh god, that reminds me of like one of the first magic items I ever created in 5e was fairy dust. Like the dust from the wings of a fairy, and like whenever you used it, there was a random table. It was absolute chaos. I think one of the effects was you just turn into a T-Rex for a couple minutes. Okay, I think for the playtest, I'm kind of okay with leaving some mods to the playtester's discretion, but just in case. Actually, no, like this is okay, because in order to playtest, I just need to fill the first half of the table, because I'm gonna be running this at level 1 anyway. So it's only like the 1d10 roll is only gonna go from 2 to 11. Which means for the AoE weapons, I just need 3 more flaws. And for the melee mods, oh god, I need a lot of flaws. But I know their effects though. So for the 6, it's gonna be a random effect. So melee mods, random effect. Roll 1d4 whenever you attack. 1 or 2, something bad happens. 3 or 4, something good happens. Love me a post-apocalyptic RPG, Twilight 2000. I tried Twilight 2000, but it is like a very serious tone for a post-apocalyptic game, which is not what I'm usually shooting for. I'm a little Fallout girly, as you say. Jerry rig. The weapon functions in such a strange way that you have to roll to understand how it works. Whenever you miss a shot, you have to redo the test. Oh, kind of like you have to recalibrate it, like the calibration changes over time. So whenever you miss a shot, you have to reload it or something. Bounces back in your face. On a 3 or 4, it makes the enemy bounce into the closest enemy, also causing the damage. That is a really powerful effect. I kind of hate the fact that it's also bouncy rubber when I also already use that for the ranged weapon. What could be something that works here? Half damage or extra damage? Ooh. What could make a melee weapon very random? In how effective it is. Okay, this is going to out me as a huge HEMA nerd, but like if you have a round handle, that makes edge alignment very hard, which means it's very random. So that could work. What's a round object you could find around your house that could be used as like a handle? Maybe like a curtain holder thingy? Like the piece of wood you use to hang your curtains on? What's it called? It's probably not called a curtain hanger thingy. Apparently it is called a curtain hanger. What? Okay. Curtain rod. Thank you, Misty. A broom handle, that would also work. Do I have a broom thing in here? I do not have a broom thing in here. I think that's where it needs to go. Because you definitely need a broom in there. So 1 or 2. It can't be 1 less damage die because there's some melee weapons that only have a single damage die. Half damage in this game doesn't really mean anything. It could be with a penalty. There we go. You attack with a penalty or you attack with a bonus. There is something to be said about humor in games. I mean, the embryonic stage of developing a fantasy lit RPG influenced just a fun hobby. Yeah. Like there's this old theory that tabletop RPG game design nerds have had, where games are either like they have different influences, either gamist, where it's like all about the combat and all about challenging your players, where it's either narrativist, where it's about telling cool stories, or it's simulationist. And what I've noticed is that a lot of post-apocalyptic games are very simulationist. They're all about realism and trying to deliver, like, because it's in the real world, they want it to work like the real world. And I'm here and I want to tell stories about characters. I don't really care for what caliber of ammo you find and whether it's a good match for your weapon. Like, I understand the appeal, especially as a GM, of wanting like a coherent, consistent world. But as a player, that is exhausting. So like by introducing humor even in the game mechanics, I think it kind of gives both the GM and the players like the artistic license to just get out of reality and start being a bit more silly in their games. And I think that's something that the genre of sci-fi and post-apocalyptic especially has been a bit lacking. Except for Fallout, I guess. But again, I'm a huge Fallout girly. Fallout can do nothing wrong. Please give me more Fallout games. Sentient goo. When you hit an enemy with experimental goo, it hustles them for 1d4 rounds. So the thing about this game is I am trying to, or at least I'm not trying to switch to Daggerheart style combat, which doesn't have rounds, but I am trying Daggerheart style combat to see if it's a good fit for this game. Which still means I don't get rounds. I think I missed where you took out initiative from your system. Yeah, that was kind of like the... I realized about 15 minutes into this stream that like most of the taking initiative out I had already done off stream, and we ended up mostly talking about random tables for 2 hours. Alright, I just need 1, 2, 3, 4 melee weapon flaws. And I think after that the game will be at least ready for playtest. Definitely not ready, period, but at least ready for playtest. The Modron making a post-apocalyptic game loves Fallout. Shocking. I mean, it's not like I mention Fallout every couple videos and about how like its environmental storytelling is a huge part of my GMing style, but it is. A sticky flow for melee weapons where the enemy and you have to stay close when you manage to hit for a turn or something. I could have a flaw like that. So what I haven't worded it, but for ranged weapons I have a flaw that is that it needs to rev up. And the way I kind of want to handle this, I think, is like the first attack you make during a combat scene, either it misses entirely or like you need to reload at the start of a combat scene. So once per combat, you need to reload before you can attack with this weapon. So a melee weapon could have something similar to that, where you kind of need to rev it up as well. Fence fall. It becomes very hard to strike your opponent if they get closer than the length of your blade. That is true. I used to do fence as well. Shocking. I know the French nerd did a bit of fencing. Way too long. So reach increased by 1, but you can't hit enemies within 1 meter of you. The thing with that is, in order to be a true flaw, I would need what's it called? Opportunity attacks in the game. And currently I don't have those. But that's an interesting flaw, I think. The term I use when running my Victorian London game, historic until inconvenient. Yup, that is basically my entire channel right there, is, hey, you know how you spend all of this time doing world building? Maybe you could spend that time writing adventures instead, and then your adventures will be written better. Sorry, I missed a bunch of messages just because I was busy writing a bunch of nonsense on the screen. Loud pan. This weapon makes a lot of noise. Using pretty... that is already the assumption for most weapons. Like there's a weapon property called covert. Most melee weapons have it, most ranged weapons don't. And the way it works is you can use a soda can as a silencer to make your weapon gain the covered property. So like that's already handled. Soft material, reroll the first crit. I think it should be on the table somewhere. Yeah, butter knife blade. I like soft material better though. Reload mechanics, to use my phrase of the week. The juice may not be worth the squeeze. So the reason I have reload mechanics in this game at all is that it just forces players to do things other than attack. Every now and then. It's basically that simple. It's a very easy way to introduce some variety in combat. I keep it simple though. Like for the machine gun, for example, you just reload every 3 attacks. There's no like keeping track of 30 individual bullets. You just reload every 3 attacks. Steel bar handle, easily available and uncomfortable as all hell. Yup. What would it do mechanically? Like, what would it being uncomfortable do? Also, this entire table has different font sizes. Let's just fix it real quick. There we go. Are you measuring grid spaces or more zones? So I actually have an anecdote about that. I have tried zone-based combat. Like, that was one of my earlier experiments. And what I found out was that it increased, at least in my very limited experience with it, it increased the amount of descriptions I would have to do as the GM. Just because, like, if I can show people a Chepeku map, I can just go, hey, here's a map, here's what's on it. You can just look at the map instead of asking me questions. If I show my players a graph like this, I need to explain exactly what the North Courtyard looks like. I need to explain it, how it is connected to the throne room. Like, oh yeah, there's a hole in the wall. And I'll need to explain to the players there's a hole in the wall between the North Courtyard and the throne room every single time they mention it, because they're gonna forget. Whereas if I can show them an actual battle map, I could, like, the hole in the wall is gonna be visible on that battle map, and that's going to quicken combat so much. So, like, I still like zone-based combat. I still like using zones in terms of when you prepare your battle map and when you prepare, like when you conceptualize what your battle map will flow like. But I still but I end up preferring grids for actually running the game, if that makes sense. Slippery handle. You drop the weapon when you crit. That could be a fun one, because I have mishaps in this game. And one of the mishaps is your weapon is thrown 2d6 meters in a random direction. It shouldn't say random direction, because in the actual game, what it says right now is Butterfingers. The weapon is thrown 3 meters away in whichever direction is the least convenient for you. This thing is nasty. Sentimental value. You use something important to you while crafting it. Losing it will cause mental despair. You have to describe the material to explain the fault. Yeah. Basically, the idea is to like, I have an image that I think captures this vibe that I'm going for very well, where you see a tinkerer making a post-apocalyptic weapon made up of whatever she could find out in the wasteland. So, like, the magazine is made up of a bubblegum dispenser. It's absolute nonsense, but, like, I mean, it shoots heavy things at a high velocity, so it does the job, right? And that's kind of the vibe I'm going for, is like, this is dangerous, but, like, it doesn't look like it makes a whole lot of sense. Slippery handle. Let's make it, I think, number 3. When you take a strong blow, you let go of the weapon and it is thrown 1d6 meters in the least convenient direction for you. Let's make it 2d6 meters. Poorly weighted. The weapon leaves you off balance after swinging, granting an enemy a bonus on hit. I kind of like that. Ooh. Also, hey, Maniac Bob. Ooh, poorly weighted. Do I have one of the flaws a self-condition on crit? I think that could be one of the self-conditions on crit. Poorly balanced. On crit, you you become exposed, which is one of the conditions in the game. Other reload mechanics attacks on ranged characters that melee type characters do not have. Yeah, exactly. At least not without flaws, but maybe there's a flaw that can give a melee weapon a reload property. But right now, at least, every single ranged weapon has the reload property, and every single melee weapon doesn't. And that includes also the flamethrower. I don't have a property that gives melee weapons a reload count. So I think that should be one of the flaws. How do you justify it in the fiction? Unevenly sharpened. When the weapon explodes, you roll below half. Instead, subtract the value. So you don't add the damage dice in this game. If you do like 2d6 damage against someone with an armor of 3, here you would deal like they would not lose a single hit point because none of the dice were 3 or above. Here they would lose 1 hit point and you would re-roll that d6 because it exploded, and they would still lose 1 hit point. And that's kind of why I have a lot of effects that happen on crit, is because oftentimes you will crit and they will still not lose an extra hit point on top of that. So it can be kind of disheartening to crit with this system, unless something happened on crit. You could reload a box knife. Ooh. I have box cutter segment shrapnel in AoE weapons, but I don't have box knives in melee weapons. On crit, you need to reload because the blades broke. Okay, 2 more flaws and this thing is actually playtestable, I think. Unless there's another 2. Oh god, no, I forgot about that. But that I can do off stream, I think. It's just translating the existing player abilities into this new Daggerheart system. Spiked, hard to store, but does a little extra damage, like a baseball bat with nails in it. I think that could be like a high level flaw where it's not super dangerous to you. It's more roleplay stuff. Might be too soon after Attack on Titan. Yeah, but those are actual box cutters. I like the idea of hook, or like something that on crit, maybe you deal some extra damage, but like you need to reload to pull the weapon out of the target. I like the flavor. Brittle. You need to use one material after combat to use it again. I have that on a ranged weapons, I think. Yeah. But it is true that I don't have it on a melee mod. That could be a fun one. Degraded rubber handle. After drawing this weapon, your hands are sticky. Using another weapon without washing your hands has some disadvantage. Oh. Sticky rubber handle. Before you use a different weapon, you have to reload. Did I just miss Corin's message? Probably. Marble stocked socket. You have to swing the weapon with great force to deal damage. To build enough momentum, nothing around you should be impeding your movement. Let me think. Because I definitely have some player abilities that are going to be like charge. Whenever you move up to like 5 meters before you attack, you gain 1 extra damage die or something. I don't know if I want that on a weapon. See you, Misty! Another common idea is to get an extra action on it. Yeah, I think Draw Steel does that, for example. Any sort of oversized weapon could have that blow where it takes a bit to lift it. Yeah. I think I'm being too precious because it's like the last floor, so I want to get it right. But like, there's no reason. On a rope, you can make multiple attacks in a turn, but if you hit, you must reload. Multiple attacks is very, very powerful, is the thing. Being forced to move before attacking will make the weapon move. Radioactive material. Your maximum health is reduced by 1 while you have this weapon. I think I'm gonna need a unique weapon property for that. It's like radioactive, you deal and take wounds instead of hit points. So the way hit points work in this game, if I can scroll to it, there we go. You have 5 hit points minus your wounds. And whenever you are at 0 hit points, instead of losing hit points, you take wounds, which means basically you go to 0, and then your max gets lower until your max gets to 0, and that's when you die. Last floor, last floor. Or a melee weapon. Like, what's the quintessential... Oh no, I used a melee weapon and it didn't work thing from, like, cinema. This is my thinking pace. Mole ninja weapon, it looks intimidating. It's impractical. I think the mole ninja weapon is more about the fact that it's a mole ninja wielding it usually. I'm just thinking the fake dagger and Knives Out. I need to watch that movie. Left-handed scissors. As a left-handed individual myself, who literally has, I don't know if you can hear them, left-handed scissors on my table right now, I take great offense. Just kidding. Actually, that could be kind of fun. It's like left-handed scissors. Roll luck whenever you get this flow. If you succeed, you're left-handed and you can use it. Otherwise, you have disadvantage. Because luck is one of the stats in this game, so I can just do that. Alright, so do we have up to 11 on every weapon? Just double checking. Blah 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 blah. I don't see a single to do. Oh, there's just this one. What's the 8th floor? -1 to all dice. Okay, yeah, perfect. And this one, then there's the to-do of like, how do I flavor this? But I think this is okay to keep for a playtest. I think this is playtestable, except for the part where I don't have classes in this game right now. But I think that's okay. I think I'll finish this off stream. And then probably ping the Flairful role on my Discord server whenever that's done. Right. All right. I think this is almost good to go. I've been working on this for like 2 weeks now. I took a little break because there was the Game Maker's Toolkit game jam, and I tried to do something for that. But outside of that, I've been working on this for 2 weeks because my next video has been recorded and edited and written like 2 months ago. I'm just waiting on some art in order to actually release it. But this thing is ready, so like for the first time in a very, very long time, I have had 2 weeks to just do other stuff other than videos, and it has been great. Do you need classes? I think I'll finish them off stream. Let me switch to the talk scene. There we go. But yeah, thank you to everyone who participated in this. We'll see after the playtest, after I end up playtesting this for a couple of sessions, if it has actual value or if it's just a silly thing that I spent way too much time on. But at least I am hyped to see how this goes. So yeah, thank you everyone. And see you around. I think the next video should come out, crossing my fingers, in like less than 2 weeks. So look forward to that. Thank you. See you. Bye bye.